Who was the shocker from night one of the 2026 NFL draft in Pittsburgh? What do we make about the landing spot for not only Makai Lemon in Philadelphia, but Kenyon Sadiq with the New York Jets? And what do you have to do in your rookie drafts based on the last few picks with what we saw Thursday night in the NFL draft in regards to Jadarian Price, Omar Cooper, and so much more? We've got a great show for you tonight. Ferrell Elliott is here. High stakes fantasy football extra reps starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs. Welcome into the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour Extra Reps, as we are bringing this to you not live. This is recorded on Thursday night after the first round of the draft. So if you're wondering why we're not weighing and waxing poetic on all the picks that went down on Friday night, this is why. We're just going to be talking about the first round tonight. Coming up on tonight's show, like I said at the top, we're going to be talking about Jadarian Price, Omar Cooper, Kenyon Sadiq, Makai Lemon, Jordan Tyson, and so much more. Plus we're going to have a special guest that I'm going to let Ferrell bring on here shortly for a special KFFSC announcement right off the top as well. If you want to connect with us on X, you can do so at HSFF Hour. I'm at Eric Balkman. Check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football Championship at KFFSC.com. Post on our Facebook page at Facebook.com/HSFF Hour. You can also email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, send them in. We'll try to get to all of them. I don't know how we'll get to all of them, but we will try, because we got such a jam-packed show with all the action taking place in Pittsburgh on Thursday night. I want to remind everybody, too, if you are looking for some FFPC fun, we have Dynasty and Empire Dynasty Orphans, some for as little as $1, some for as less than $1 over at myffpc.com if you want to take advantage. If the mood should strike you and you want to play Dynasty Fantasy Football in honor of the NFL draft going on, we would encourage that behavior. We launched 2 best ball tournaments this past week. The FFPC Best Ball Tournament, we upped it from a $300,000 grand prize up to a $400,000 grand prize, just $125 to enter there. And of course, the Superflex Best Ball Tournament, we tacked on nearly $50,000 into the prize pool there. $35 is the entry fee, and you can win $100,000 there. The Big Gorilla, which is the ADP we'll be using tonight, $350 entry, $1 million grand prize, 7 bananas, and the early Rampage tournament still going on right now at myffpc.com. And if you're looking for that perfect entry point in the high stakes fantasy football, check out the Baby Gorilla. $125 gets you eligible for a $100,000 grand prize. All these tournaments can be found at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share with your friends, share with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which I believe will be next. I got to think about this. Next Wednesday for the high stakes fantasy. Next Friday. Next Thursday. Sorry. More to come on that. But next Thursday on FFPC Insider Access will be the next time we go live on this channel. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him. You love him. You talk with him all the time. He is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. I want to bring him on right now. Mr. Ferrell Elliott. Ferrell, what a whirlwind draft it was tonight here on Thursday as we're recording this right after the first round, essentially.
Immediately after.
It was a lot of fun, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. I tell you what, it proved everyone wrong. All the pundits were proved wrong, with the exception of dear friends Doc Hakey, who had apparently a wager on the draft. I didn't even know you could do that in certain parts of the world, but he had a wager of the running back Love going to Arizona. And earlier, I spoke to Jeremy Brock, our defending champion in our KFFSC Best Ball Championship. And he predicted Arizona for Love, as did Stuart Kenyon out in out there in the West Coast. So it was great. But, Balky, I tell you, this is a year of being blessed. Everything about football has been a blessing this year. I thought the first round of the draft was a blessing to any draft neck. And if you're not one, you become one by watching. But, KFFSC is counting our blessings too. This is our 25th season, Balky. 25th season. You didn't even have a beard when you started playing with us.
Sure did.
Look at you now. And one of the greatest things that has happened is it made the acquaintance of one Jason Camp, who we're going to bring on here soon. And it's my pleasure to announce that the KFFSC is expanding to a new venue for its live drafts this August 15th and 16th, which is a Saturday and Sunday. We will be at Camp Landing in Ashland, Kentucky. Camp Landing Entertainment Complex, which is brainchild of Jason. He continues to expand it and make it better, and it is fantastic as it is now. It's a great layout with opportunities. We're going to bring him in to talk about it, but our drafting will be live main event drafting in Ashland, Kentucky. The airport that is serving us is Huntington, West Virginia, only 15 minutes from Camp Landing. And we're going to let him tell us a little bit more about the place. He played his first year, or perhaps his second year, but his first year with us live last year. That was in Northern Kentucky, and we're looking for him to be one of the first players in the KFFSC that competes in the live trifecta: Ashland, Northern Kentucky, and then Louisville, Caesar, Southern Indiana. Why don't you pop him in, Balky?
I'm going to pop him in right now, ladies and gentlemen. The proud proprietor of Camp Landing. Check it out at camplanding.com. The first location for the KFFSC in 2026. You'll be able to draft there in Ashland, Kentucky. You'll be able to draft live in Northern Kentucky. And then, of course, down at Caesar, Southern Indiana. But it all starts, the live stuff all starts with Camp Landing. Please welcome in the proprietor, Mr. Jason Camp. Jason, welcome in. So good to be bringing you not only on this broadcast, not only on the night of the night of the NFL draft, but under really good circumstances as we announce this live draft scenario at Camp Landing. Good evening, sir.
Hey, how you doing, guys? It was a great draft. I'm still pumped up for it. And, the trifecta of weekends coming to Kentucky, all starting in Ashland, Kentucky. So we're really appreciative to join the team and be the start in a new drafting over on the eastern side. And if people aren't familiar where Ashland, Kentucky is, it's all the way in the eastern tip, right on the Ohio River. So we got the state of Ohio only a couple miles away from us, the state of West Virginia on the other side. So people from 3 states can come right to Camp Landing and have a great weekend that we're going to have there. We got hotels set up. We're going to do that at Tap That Sports, my golf simulator bar, which has 48 Pour My Beer taps there that will literally just be steps from where you're drafting live. So we plan on having a great weekend, August 15th and 16th.
And Balky, the floor plan of this operation is so diverse, based on the response, and I anticipate a very active and positive response to this, but there's many different venues and places where we can have these drafts. And it's I can see Camp Landing being a home for us for a long time. It's very exciting. Jason's been very gracious to invite the league to Ashland, Kentucky, to Camp Landing. Thank you, Jason. I'm thrilled, and it's been great meeting you first at the FFPC, then here in Northern Kentucky at our draft. And now, when we're ready to talk about when we make when we make our trips to live drafts, first in Kentucky and then to Las Vegas, and all the drafts we'll do between. We've got a real nice roster of first-round draft picks to talk about, Bob.
We do indeed. And by the way, Jason is not just like some shill for Camp Landing. Dude is talented. I brought this up, Jason, on our Wednesday night broadcast. You are coming off a $5,000 big payback win in the FFPC. There's a $1,000 entry online that I think you did that you won this past year. and more than a dozen other titles to your name in the FFPC, including Dynasty. So it's very exciting to bring you on tonight to talk about this. And without further ado, Jason, let's dive right in. I think the first thing I want to bring up, and I shouldn't have said this to my son, but I did. When the Cardinals were on the clock tonight, my son is 12. He pays attention to fantasy, he plays in fantasy football leagues. And I said, and I shouldn't say this, but I was joking. I was never going to do this. I want to make this abundantly clear. But I said, son, if the Cardinals take Jeremiah Love here tonight, I'm going to punch you right in the face. and then sure enough, as soon as the jaw of Jeremiah was out of Roger Goodell's mouth, my son took off and hit.
The kid is still running. The kid is still running.
He came and watched. He watched most of a good majority of the first round with me, but it doesn't say a whole lot for me as a father. But this is what I want to lead into tonight. The Cardinals, I think, like, it was more of a threat to me than anything else that they were going to take Love, and they came through on this threat, Jason. He now enters a backfield, a running back room that includes, but not limited to, Trey Benson, James Conner, and one Tyler Algier. Love is a 2-year starter, or was a 2-year starter for Notre Dame. He's going to turn 21 this upcoming month. He's still 20 years old, 6 foot, 212, super explosive. I mean, I don't really want to dwell on Love here, because what can I say about him that hasn't been said already? But Jason, the landing spot is very curious. I don't necessarily penalize Jeremiah Love from a fantasy standpoint here, but I do wonder, and I'll let you speak on it, but I kind of already, like, Trey Benson was like at the back of my mind. But Algier and Connor, I thought were going to be significant players in this backfield. Now I'm not sure how it's going to work. When you look at Jeremiah Love in Arizona, what does this say for the other 3 guys there, Jason?
Well, I mean, really, when you look at it, I think we all hoped that Love fell to Washington, right? That would have been the much better spot for him. Even if he went to the Titans, having, Pollard and Spears there, it still would have been difficult. But now he goes to this backfield where he might be limited, even more. So I look at Love's usage because, I mean, the talent is bar none, right? But I think because of his position, where he went, what he does because of his talent, he's probably still, I mean, I've been in drafts, last 2 months, and he's going in the, second and third round and high third if he falls that far. But now I got to see that slipping, just because you're not sure what kind of usage that happens. Then, they sign Algier to a decent contract, right? He still may get some touchdowns. You got to expect he's going to be in inside the 5-yard line. But, Algier's been hated by everybody who had Bijan Robinson the last couple of years. And now he's just going to be hated even more with everybody who has Love, right? And you still have, I mean, Benson, if he can just stay on the field, he's got a lot of talent. And, I think a lot of people root for, James Conner as an underdog. And, he's a workhorse that can go out there and catch passes and all that. So what the hell is going to happen? I mean, to me, it's Love is all the way at the top, right? In the same backfield as Notre Dame. But to me, I kind of rather get Jadarian Price, and we'll talk about him later, but I like him going to Seattle, a much better situation until Charbonnet comes back. I'd rather get him in the, 8th or 9th round, as I'm guessing where he's going to go, as opposed to Love in the 2nd or 3rd, to be honest with you.
I cannot wait to draft this player, Jason Camp. I've said on the show, this is my Christian McCaffrey. This is this kind of player. And perhaps there is enough role for the second back in this backfield, but I think Connor and Benson become non-factors in fantasy football, and I still think Love goes exactly where he's going. And when we see those kind of skills, if the Cardinals can figure out a way to make him be that guy, and I think he's truly that guy. So I can't wait to draft this player. First of all, at the first spot in Dynasty, and then in redrafts as we get later in the league. But I hope you're right. I hope he does dip a little bit. There's nothing like getting a player like this on the dip.
What I got to tell you, I actually just I'm in the middle of a Baby Gorilla draft right now, and I actually took Love in the second. So, I say all that, but I took him before the draft happened, and I'm not sure I would have done it, but I do have him. I took Jonathan Taylor in the first, and I stacked it up with Love in the second. So
I think it takes a lot of courage not to be in a ADP position that lines up with this player and not clicking.
Yeah.
The talent is undeniable. And I've said, and Ferrell, this, I've been saying this for the last few weeks on the show, that I think landing spot for Love is largely irrelevant, because I think that wherever he lands, they are going to use him quite a bit. And even though he lands in a crowded backfield in Arizona, my question is not how successful is Love going to be this year. My question is how relevant are Algier and Connor going to be this year, which is not very, in my opinion, right now. Guys, let's move on to wide receiver. Farrell, I'll throw this to you right away. Carnell Tate, number 4 overall in a down year, reportedly, for wide receivers. In a down year, Carnell Tate, the first receiver chosen, is the 4th overall pick in the draft, behind Mendoza, David Bailey, and the aforementioned Love. He never hit 1,000 yards receiving at Ohio State, but he was going up against some pretty talented individuals there. 6'2", 192, 21 years old now. 67 targets last year, 51 catches for 875 yards. He now takes his talents to Nashville to be reported number 1 wide receiver for Cam Ward, a team that finished 30th in scoring last season. Ferrell, how excited are you, not only from a dynasty standpoint for Carnell Tate, but knowing that the Titans have clearly drafted their number 1 wide receiver tonight with the number 4 overall pick?
Yeah, you've got him, and he is everything he is supposed to be. And, if we had said about the Titans, well, they're going to get either the top running back or the top receiver, and they'll be happy with either one. Yep, that's exactly what happened. And that new Tennessee Titan logo, guys, I'm not good with lining these things up, but this is a beautiful logo. And this is just beautiful. And when they drafted him, I said, good Lord, it's an arena team somewhere, like in Tuscaloosa that drafted him. I don't like that T, but I think everyone will get used to seeing it in the winning column with this player coming into this. It restacks exactly what you can look at with the other fantasy players. We'll get to that over the next weeks with the other fantasy stops along there. Let's talk about Wan'Dale Robinson now, with this player clearing that out and rolling the safety towards him. He is the number 1 guy. Wan'Dale can move across the hashes in the middle of the field. It's going to be great for all the Tennessee Titans. But yes, I like Carnell Tate here.
Jason Tate, now a Tennessee Titan. Ferrell mentioned Wan'Dale Robinson. How do you sort of change the way that you view both of these players now, knowing that they're going to be sharing the field together? I would say that they're not the most complementary players, but I do think they complement each other in certain regards. But for fantasy purposes, Tate versus Wan'Dale Robinson, and certainly we'll get some new ADP on this after the NFL draft ends and we get some more fresh FFPC stuff going on with the Big Gorilla, the Baby Gorilla, so on and so forth. But Tate and Wan'Dale Robinson on the same field. Jason, what do you make of it?
Yeah, like you said, I think they're both kind of possession receivers, right? So I just think your Yak's going to be a little bit better with Tate, where he goes. More importantly, I think it's great for Cam Ward, right? It's good for him to get somebody else on the field like that. And he's got, Gunnar Helm on an up and coming, tight end that now has been cleared the way that they got rid of Chig. And, he's gone to another team, to Washington. But I think it opens it up, and you got 2 really good receivers that aren't going to drop the ball. And Tate's going to stretch the field a little bit more, even though, he's a great route runner, and that's what Cam Ward needs. And that's what Tate brings to the table. That offense is just going to get better and better. And with Pollard back there and Spears, I think they're a good 1-2 combination. So you really see that offense take a step forward and grow together, all as a super young team.
Yeah, you bring it up about Tate being a route runner and a possession guy. And yeah, he is, at the combine, he is a 4.5 guy, but I think his play speed is just faster than being measured. I really like how he moves through the breaks. I think he gets a lot of separation. I like it, and I don't think they're through at some of the offensive positions in Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm expecting them to add a tight end to go with Gunnar Helm. We could see them add another wide receiver. They already have Manor and the Pro Bowler Shamir DK from Florida by way of Wisconsin on this team. All of a sudden, that Tennessee Titans offense, and they just picked up Peter Skoronski, I believe, his fifth-year option. That offense looking pretty good in Tennessee. And speaking of good-looking offenses, my goodness, guys, the New Orleans offense looking quite a bit better after tonight on Thursday than it did prior to the start of the draft. Jordan Tyson from Arizona State is now a New Orleans Saint. He was drafted with the 8th overall pick in the draft. This is a player that, you know, you look at what he was able to accomplish at Arizona State when he was on the field. The size is there. The speed is there. The production was there. He was, by and large, a lot of people's number one wide receiver, Ferrell, coming into the 2025 collegiate football season. Had some injury issues. I've been pretty adamant that I'm not concerned with the injury issues. We heard Mel Kiper talk about it tonight, that, you know, he had this hamstring issue. He tried to play through it and hurt his other hamstring. So this is a baller. This is a guy that, you know, the hamstring issues are a little bit of a concern. But when you hear that story and understand, like, he was a gamer and trying to play through it, I'm less concerned with that. And I also am not concerned with a broken collarbone. I'm also not concerned with a torn ACL that happened 4 years ago. You know, I just feel like there's a lot to like about Tyson. Now he goes to a team opposite Chris Olave with Tyler Shough throwing to him. I really, really like Tyson, not only for 2026, Ferrell, but for Dynasty, especially if something happens with Olave, and hopefully it doesn't with the concussions and everything. But my God, if anything does, Tyson is a waiting number one wide receiver, in my opinion, in New Orleans. Do you see it the same way, sir?
I see it the same way. I love that carpet down in New Orleans. I think it'll be great for them. I think one of the fascinating things would be to watch from this date moving forward just what happens with Tyler Shough in the best ball tournaments, where 2 and 3 quarterbacks are not uncommon. I think he's going to shoot up the board, because after you're given so many tools, you can't ignore the kind of games that he's going to have in that format. And we might see that once the preseason starts. We might see him, especially with his connections to Louisville and some home cooking here. We might see him begin to populate as a number 2 quarterback of some of the KFFSC rosters.
You know, Jason, you mentioned how much the Carnell Tate and Wan'Dale Robinson tandem is going to help Cam Ward. I think you could kind of make the same statement about Olave and now Jordan Tyson for Tyler Shough in New Orleans.
Yeah, and I actually like this duo a little bit more. And you know, on a few teams, I've got the second pick in the rookie draft, and, you know, just waiting to see where these guys fall, with everybody taking Love, you know, at one is like, okay, where's Tate going to go? Where's Tyson going to go? And you know what? I'm actually going to be picking Tyson over Tate just because of this situation. I think Olave will be opening up more holes. Like Ferrell said, playing indoors on the carpet. I think they have a more exciting quarterback. And New Orleans is going to fling it around a little bit and need to score. And I think the Titans are going to play a little bit more defense and be in some lower scoring games. And I like the shootouts that the Saints are going to be in. So I think I'm going to lean toward Tyson in that second pick in the dynasty drafts over Tate, to be honest with you.
That's a great point, Jason. And I think we should hammer that home, too. You have Kellen Moore, the head coach in New Orleans, who I think his team led the league in plays per game last year. Mike McCarthy said this, too, when Moore was the OC in Dallas. He's like, Kellen just wants to throw all the time. And what did Moore do in New Orleans? He just ran a bunch of plays all the time. He wanted to, like, go, 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 go. And what do we have in Tennessee? Robert Saleh, a super talented defensive coordinator and a defensive-minded head coach that, granted, did not take Jeremiah Love tonight, but he couldn't because Love went 3. Who knows what would have happened if Love would have been at 4. But he goes with Carnell Tate, a guy that let me take it a different direction. We know what his defensive background is and how much he understands how important defense is to winning games. And this could be a situation where it's Pollard and Spears and maybe another running back that they draft tomorrow or round 3 or whatever. But what it all comes back down to is something I happen to agree with you, Jason. Much higher upside with this New Orleans offense than with this Tennessee offense, given who the head coaches are. And you can begin it and end it right there. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Guys, we want to keep this moving here. We're 24 minutes in, and we're at the number 16 pick of the draft. Jason,
Hey, that's good. We're doing well.
Maybe it is good. I don't know.
We're doing well.
Jason, Kenyon Sadiq, the only tight end drafted in the first round this year, out of Oregon, he goes to the New York Jets. What? This is after they took Mason Taylor in the second round of the 2025 draft. Sadiq is going to be a player who, he did back up Terrence Ferguson at Oregon, and now he'll be playing alongside or backing up or starting ahead of Mason Taylor in New York. I don't know. This is a guy who is an insanely good blocker, and I was talking about this with Matt Price from Dynasty League Football on Monday night. Sometimes you don't want these guys so good at blocking that, like, you want them good enough at blocking that they're on the field, right? But you don't want them so good at blocking that becomes their milieu, that becomes their meal ticket. And I don't think we're there with Sadiq. But I think this draft pick is very, very interesting, knowing what the Jets did last year with Mason Taylor, knowing what they have in Garrett Wilson, and now they add Sadiq to this. We know that tight ends are becoming in vogue to play two of them or three of them sometimes. Sean McVay is doing this to some critical acclaim in Southern California over the last couple of years. What do you make of Sadiq now on the same team as Mason Taylor in New York, Jason?
Well, and I think it's also on the same team as Garrett Wilson, and now on the same team as Omar Cooper Jr.
Yeah.
You look at the whole thing, and to me, it's one of the worst spots fantasy wise for Sadiq, because he is a physical specimen, right? I mean, he's kind of like, what Kyle Pitts was when he came out, and he has all the skills to be, the number 2 receiver, and I'm just not sure it's going to happen there. And even if it does, you got Geno throwing the ball there now, and it's still the Jets, right? So, I mean, I had hoped for a better spot for Sadiq. I think he'll do well there. I don't think Mason Taylor's going to get off the field. So it's just going to cut, his production a little bit, which is unfortunate to limit it. Over the long term, I think it's going to be great. I think the Jets long term, once they get a new quarterback in there and go with maybe next year, one of the rookies, 2 or 3 years down the road, this might look like an unbelievable pick. But in redrafts this year, it's probably one that I'm going to stay away from because I know he's going in about the 8th round. I've got him in the 8th or 9th in a couple of drafts, but I'm not sure he's going to, stay there. I think he's going to drop a little bit.
Farrell, we'll just talk about it from a redraft standpoint. Sadiq on the same team as Mason Taylor. How do you handle these guys, Ferrell, in redraft leagues right now? To me, Taylor is a guy that's taken a huge hit for me. And yeah, Sadiq, I still think is interesting as like a fringe top 12, top 13 guy, but maybe a little bit less interesting than Mason Taylor. Or am I overvaluing Mason Taylor? I don't know. These are the thoughts that are swimming through my head right now.
You've been overvalued on Mason Taylor for a long time. That doesn't mean he's not a good player, but God bless. And I think about this. Could anyone, be better to Geno Smith than what he's having now and what he had last year? And God, it was a train wreck last year, and then he comes into this situation. I agree with a lot of the elements of what Jason says. I think, however, that we looked at this earlier in the show, and I don't remember the numbers. It was how often Bowers lined up as a slot receiver last year. And I think these numbers could cross 75%. And when you have your Taylor on the field with Sadiq, and they try to call it 12 personnel, it's going to be that in name only. I believe you're in a situation where at 1.5 per reception, I still think you've got a lot of great fantasy value here with this player. So I don't think it's going to affect his draft position. He's going to come out as a number 2 tight end. Those guys that went for him who waited on tight end, and he's their number 1. They might have some problems early in the year, but when it's all said and done, I still see 80 catches for this player, maybe 75, and at 1.5 a catch, that's pretty impressive.
I am not all the way with you, Ferrell, but I'm close in regards to Sadiq. By the way, Brock Bowers lining up in the slot over the course of his short 2-year career in the NFL, just over half the time. So there is certainly something to be said for that.
I think the one thing with that is, going back to Tennessee, it's like the Jets. How many times are they going to throw? When you got Brees Hall, they're trying to play a defensive game. That's where their coaches want to do. If Geno's averaging 24 to 26 passes a game, I'm not sure he's going to hit when he's got to spread the ball to Garrett Wilson and Omar Cooper and everybody else.
Then we got problems with every receiver. I see the Jets. I see the Jets trailing Buffalo consistently, trailing New England consistently, and a lot of other teams that they play. So I see from a catch-up chase position more than 26 passes a game. But you're right there. Based on what the Jets want to do and what they have to do, two different things.
Correct.
Guys, despite the Apple Podcast reviews of this show saying that I sometimes get too political on the show, I'm willing to go a little political here. How do we live in a world where the United States and Iran can't settle their differences when the Eagles and Cowboys can agree to a first-round draft night trade? This should not happen ever, and yet it did tonight. It makes no sense to me, and it affects fantasy as well, because the Eagles trade up with Dallas to get Makai Lemon, Jason Camp, with the number 20 overall pick in the draft tonight. The Eagles giving up number 23, number 114, and number 137 to get the 5'11", 190-pound receiver from USC. Makai Lemon is now a Philadelphia Eagle. Howie Roseman, if he's trying to disguise that A.J. Brown will not be a member of the Eagles team in 2026, he's doing an awful job. But he's doing a great job of replenishing this wide receiver room. Assuming Brown moves on to New England or wherever after June 1st, the Eagles receiver room will still have Devonta Smith. It will still have Makai Lemon now. It will still have Dontavian Wicks. It's a very exciting spot to be thinking of. But, Jason, I want to put this to you. There were a lot of people, myself included, by the way, thinking that Devonta Smith was a great redraft pick based on A.J. Brown leaving. And while he still may be a good redraft pick, because I don't think people were paying up for like 120 catch season or anything like that. But how does Makai Lemon affect Devonta Smith's 2026 season? And what do you, Jason, think that Makai Lemon is going to produce for Philadelphia this season?
Honestly, I think he cuts into it a lot. I think Lemon is super talented. I think he brings a lot to Philly, filling that A.J. Brown hole that we all think is going to be there. I actually think it might be pretty close of what Lemon's getting, same as Devonta Smith. I think Smith will get, a few more targets a game, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think. I think Lemon is a great pick in the, mid rounds, probably 2 rounds after Smith, when I think his production might be pretty darn close, to be honest with you.
Ferrell, what do you like Jason kind of handled the redraft aspect. Is Lemon a future number 1 for the Eagles, or do you think he's always going to be the second banana to Devonta Smith?
I think he's a number 1. I do. And yes, it prompts conversation to the trade. Ever since you started talking about the Philly and Dallas trade, I started reliving draft day with Kevin Costner when he got to Seattle. I can't remember that actor that played the GM out of Seattle, but they didn't trust each other to get through the phone call. But I can't remember if they made the trade. I'm glad to see this trade was made. I think our young man's going to have to work on his interview skills, but he had some problems tonight on the podium. But all in all, he brings characteristics of the receiver position prior to all the other similar and elements of it to all the other receivers that we've talked about. He sort of wraps up in a complete package some of the skill set of the players that went before him. He's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I think he can be a lot of what Philadelphia needs, and I think that our quarterback here, Hurts, is going to move up a little bit because they will they'll see a future that commits itself to the passing game in Philadelphia and to their quarterback. So I like it.
What's funny is Ferrell, I was watching clips of draft day today in preparation. Yeah, because that movie is not made for the 3 of us. like who are big fans of the NFL draft.
Yeah.
Like it's not made for us, which is fine. But I can stomach, like the 30 or 40 minutes that were entertaining to me. So I was watching clips of it today. The dude who played the Seattle GM,
yes,
Hawks GM, Tom.
It's a great character actor, but I can't place him.
His name is Patrick St. Esprit.
Okay.
And he, you would know him from the Hunger Games Catching Fire.
Yeah.
He was also in Sons of Anarchy, and he was also in SWAT, the television show, not the movie, which is unfortunate because the movie is tremendous. That is a big time guilty pleasure of mine. As we move on here tonight, I don't want to dwell on this. By the way, if you guys are looking for my takes on television, movie, and pop culture, check out Off Topic with Ben and Balky. Anywhere you get your podcast, we review a different movie every single week. And that is found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. A lot of fun there. We're having a lot of fun talking fantasy football tonight. And Jason, I'm going to throw it back to you here on this. KC Concepcion is the number 24 overall pick tonight. There was a lot of people, Jason, that thought that the Browns are going to go offensive line and wide receiver, or they were going to go wide receiver and then offensive line. Well, they went tackle and then they went wide receiver. Concepcion is now maybe the number one target in Cleveland. A guy who was a 3-star recruit, if we go back in 2023 to NC State, back when he was Kevin Concepcion. Now he's KC Concepcion. I think one of the big knocks on this dude is the drops. I don't really put a whole lot of stock into that because if you look at who leads the league in drops, the NFL in drops year after year, it's a lot of really talented individuals. I don't put a whole lot of stock into that. This guy wins behind the line of scrimmage, right in front of the line of scrimmage, downfield. He does it all. I'm very excited about his prospects. And Jason, maybe even more excited about Concepcion in Cleveland, knowing that he could be the number one wide receiver as soon as this fall for the Browns this year. I'm going to stop praising him. I want to get your honest opinion on Concepcion in the Mistake by the Lake in Lake.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's almost like, if the Dolphins go wide receiver in the second round tomorrow and they go with Boston or one of those guys, maybe an immediate number one receiver, right, for the team. So I think the same thing with Cleveland. And he does have a lot of talent. If you're going to have a lot of drops, you actually have a lot of targets to get that many drops. And the interesting thing about Concepcion is he hasn't dropped a punt, but just some balls, that have been thrown his way. So, punts are a lot harder to not drop, and the concentration is there. I think that stat sometimes can be a little deceiving. Great talent, and certainly is going to get a lot of targets. I think him and Fannin are going to get peppered when they're not handing off to Keshawn Junkins. So I think that's a great pick and really good value, and I'm interested to see where he's going to start going in drafts.
Ferrell, Jason and I are both high in Concepcion. Are you of the same thinking on this?
Yes, he won the Paul Horning Award. That's his link to Louisville and to Green Bay, Balky. Once again, we're linked. We can get Jason in there too. He's a versatile player that can run all the routes. He ran outside. They think maybe more slot here. All I know is that Cleveland, whichever quarterback, whether and I'm personally hoping it's Sanders because I think these young players all can elevate together, and that's why I think it would be the best choice for this player to match up with that quarterback. But I think it's a team that got it right. This is good for fantasy. All the drafters that drafted him early, and Bulky, you've been a big fan of this player.
Yeah.
Way back. All the drafters that drafted him early can be very happy and very pleased with this landing spot.
It's hard for me to imagine, as a guy who drafted a lot of early shares of Concepcion back in January and February, it's hard for me to imagine a spot that I want him to be in instead of this one. This is a really good one for him, where he's contending with the Cedric Tillmans and the Jerry Judys of the world. I mean, honestly, the most thing I'm concerned with is Harold Fannin. And I feel like these guys can coexist and be really, really good players. And it should help Shadir Sanders, to Farrell's point, as well. Jason,
up each other's game.
Yes, exactly. 100%. We touched on Omar Cooper Jr. Before, Jason. I want to get your thoughts specifically on him because the Niners had the opportunity to draft Cooper and they chose not to. The Jets trade up with the Niners to take Cooper Jr. with the 30th overall pick of the draft. He's 6 foot, he's 200 pounds, and this is a guy that, was on and off the number 1 wide receiver for the national champion and undefeated Indiana Hoosiers, led by the first overall pick and Heisman Trophy winner, Fernando Mendoza. When it comes to Cooper, I think he's the more dynamic of the two players. I was hoping for financial purposes that he would be drafted by the Steelers at 21. That didn't come to fruition, but that's okay because Cooper, I think, still has a good spot in New York. You think about the 2 tight ends we talked about already with Sadiq and Taylor. He is now going to be opposite Garrett Wilson. All the Jets need is a quarterback, and Aaron Glenn, I guarantee you, is falling asleep tonight, Jason, with fingers crossed in his bed that they can find a quarterback in 2027 to go with all this pass-catching talent that they've accumulated with Wilson, with Cooper, with Taylor, with Sadiq, and obviously Breece Hall in the backfield as well. What do you make of Omar Cooper Jr., and how are you going to be treating him as it stands right now, Jason, in rookie drafts with the FFPC kicking off next weekend?
Well, and honestly, I really like him in rookie drafts on that back end. Once you get past the first, guys, when you're looking at 7 or 8, when those guys are all gone, I think it's when you're looking at Cooper or Price or any of those guys, he's right in the mix because from a long-term talent wise, I mean, Wilson, he's not old by any means, but he's been there a while, and with contracts and the way they come up, I mean, the Jets are setting the table for the future, like we touched on before. And really, I think it really helps. Geno Smith is going to have a solid year. If you want just a backup at the, last couple rounds of your draft and you want to get somebody as, an injury, wild card just to have as backup, I think Geno Smith is not a bad choice because he has all this talent around him now. And I think Cooper, might not have a great first year, but I think, by his 3rd season, he's going to be a star. I mean, he's a big body who goes up and catches balls and, just needs to get a little more plays under him there. And I think it'll be a slow progression in New York, but a good one.
We love all these players so far. And if you look at the history of the first round, only about half of them hit. Now, I think because we're so in tune with fantasy football, we can see a situation of how these players all hit. But I remind you guys, we got 2 more days, and I think we're giving this team to Geno, and it's his team right now. But Balky, what round did Dak Prescott get picked in?
Like in real life in the NFL?
Yeah, real life.
He was day 3, wasn't he?
I think he was day 2. I think he was the 4th round. Jason, where did Purdy come from?
Oh, Purdy's last.
Yeah, Purdy was last. I think we got a lot of football and a lot of interesting things that could happen with this New York team. All I say is I really like where they're going, and who knows? That's what makes the next 2 days so fascinating. But it's Christmas in April for our quarterback there in New York. It's just fantastic
for sure.
Prescott, a 4th round pick, and Ferrell, I don't know if the Jets are going to find their future NFL quarterback, franchise quarterback, beg your pardon, on day 2 or 3. Far be it for me to say that they won't, because I know there's a non-zero chance of anything. But I think that depending upon what Geno Smith does this year, and maybe Smith is a guy that we need to be zeroing in on in Dynasty Superflex and just redraft Superflex leagues that this guy could actually turn it on this year with these young and up.
I think he's a fantastically occasional scoring quarterback, but they appear to be zigging when everyone else is zagging. That's a great thing to do. You saw that with the Rams tonight. They went out and got a quarterback that no one thought they would go that high on. And I don't really even know who the next prospects are at quarterback. But we've been told all year long that the quarterback draft is 2027. Maybe somebody grabs one in 2026 that surprises all of us.
Well, and I would say that it'd be interesting, and this would be a good spot if Jared Allen from Penn State, went in the 3rd or 4th round of the Jets, and he could learn under Geno Smith. He's got all this talent in front of him. I mean, a year ago we were talking about he was going to be the number 1 pick this year. So he still has some talent and could go into a good situation and really prove himself in the future and inherit a team with great talent like the Jets are putting together.
I think that's great that you mentioned that, Jason, because not only do I agree with you on Aller, but I think you could make the case of Carson Beck. I think you could make the case, especially Garrett Nussmeier, who wasn't that far removed, along with Aller, from being the potential 101 of this draft. Then you get into the Cole Paytons and the Taylon Greens of the world on day 3, who have the tools, but perhaps they need the polish, they need the coaching. I don't know. Ferrell could be right, and we could see the Jets find their franchise quarterback in 2026. I'm sure they'd love to do that on day 3 of the draft, and then focus in on other playmakers on defense and maybe fortify that offensive line in 2027. This is not a Jets podcast, so I want to bring it back to the final that we saw tonight before we get into the quarterbacks, guys. Jadarian Price, Ferrell.
Yes.
Number 32 tonight. We've seen this mocked in a lot of spots, but the 5'11", 203-pound backup at Notre Dame to Jeremiah Love ends up going to Seattle. Now, if you look at what the Seahawks are dealing with, it's a Zach Charbonnet torn ACL. I don't know at what point he comes back this season, if at all. Emmanuel Wilson, the former Green Bay Packer, is obviously on this team. George Holani, who I saw going in a lot of best ball drafts early on this season, are also there as well. Ferrell, the scuttlebutt on Jadarian Price is that he is a good running back. He's got really good running back traits, except for the physical stuff. Like Nick Singleton was the guy at Penn State that had all the physical stuff. Jadarian Price has all the stuff you can't coach, but he doesn't have the speed. He doesn't have the strength. He doesn't and we don't know what the pass catching is. He just never really was able to get the opportunity to catch passes in Notre Dame. But Ferrell, he's a first-round pick. Got draft capital tonight. How do we change the way we think, or maybe sustain the way we think about Jadarian Price now that we know he is a first-round 2026 pick and he'll be ostensibly leading this Seahawks backfield week 1?
I think we have to take into account this is the elegant luxury of a Super Bowl winning team that comes back with Super Bowl winning players that think they're going to get nothing but better. So they draft a player that they have some idea about how they specifically want to use him. And we'll learn about that throughout the preseason, throughout the summer. There's things about this player's game that I really like, but it's his typical Seattle. They're a good group at outthinking everyone else. And, I'm going to say that I'm willing to put him on my roster. I wish I had gotten him earlier, when the draft number and the draft position would be easier to roster him. I'm afraid going forward that I won't be. There's a tide that just says first round pick, injured backfield mate. We'll elevate him through the draft, and I think it's going to be a little bit too expensive for me, and I'll have to wait on the result. And I think some days I'll be miserably wrong, and some days I'll be right. I think there's a big variance in what this player will do, but I really like the football skill set of the player, and I love the team he's going to.
Jason, the defending Super Bowl champs have not 2, not 3, only 4 picks as of right now in the NFL draft. I thought that this was a slam dunk trade down spot, get some more capital for day 2, get some more capital for day 3. Am I putting too much stock into this? What does it say about Jadarian Price that the Seahawks had 4 draft picks and probably had some opportunities to move down? They chose to select him at 32 and now are still only strapped with 3 picks for the remainder of the draft. Should we be bumping Price up the way we think about him, the way that the Seattle Seahawks are thinking about him, or am I jumping the Seahawk, so to speak, here tonight?
Yeah, I think, this was the number 1 spot for him to go, right? Good situation. Like you said, injured backfield. I'm a huge Charbonnet fan. Had him on a lot of teams last year. Depending on Price's price and where he goes in the draft, this could be a backfield that I ham and egg if I'm going hero running back and I'm taking a guy in the 1st or 2nd round. And then if I can get Price in like the 6th or 7th and Charbonnet in the 9th or 10th, where in the second half I'm starting one of those two, that coaching staff isn't going to go away from Charbonnet as long as he comes back healthy. He'll be on the field.
Pre-draft, Balky. What does Mr. Darren Armani say about Price ADP in the Big Gorilla, please?
Yeah, so if I look at, that's exactly what I was going to look up. If you look up Jadarian Price prior to the NFL draft tonight, running back 28 at the 701. This was behind Chuba Hubbard, RJ Harvey. It was right ahead of Ramondre Stevenson, Jalen Warren, and one.
I just got a notice from a Big Gorilla I'm in. He goes at the 6'8" spot, which I thought was a little higher, but that's just a few clicks above average, so not a big deal.
All right, guys. Jason, I'm going to throw this to you right away. And I like how we're 49 minutes in, and I'm throwing the first curveball tonight.
Oh.
I did not see the Ty Simpson pick to Los Angeles coming. We had talked about this, Ferrell, I think on this show like 2 months ago when the Rams still had 2 first-round picks. And it just struck me as, okay, well, they can go for broke with one of them and they can take Simpson with the other one. Obviously, the heir apparent to Matthew Stafford in Los Angeles. And then we get this report from Mike Garafolo from the NFL Network that the Rams and Stafford are talking extension. So to me, the fact that they traded one of these first-round picks for McDuffie from Kansas City, the corner, and then they're talking extension with Stafford, this was a pick that seemed destined to be Makai Lemon or an offensive lineman or a defensive playmaker. And so when I saw Ty Simpson go number 13 overall, a guy who maybe was not going to be a first-round pick at all in the draft tonight, who ends up going in the first half of the first round. Jason, I'll let you weigh in on this first. There's a lot of stuff to unpack here. How we value Matthew Stafford, how we value Ty Simpson, how we value Puka Nacua in dynasty leagues going forward. Now that we know Simpson is going to have the opportunity for at least 4 years, or we think 4 years, to work under not only Matthew Stafford, but Sean McVay. I said originally that this was a fantastic landing spot for Simpson if he got it, but I just kind of wrote off. I'm like, well, he'll never be drafted by the Rams. Now, I was wrong. And Jason, maybe this is the best thing possible, not only for Ty Simpson, but for Ty Simpson's dynasty value and how we handle him in FFPC Dynasty rookie Superflex drafts now.
Right. I mean, it's great for Ty Simpson. No doubt about it. I'm not sure what the Rams were thinking. I know it is, they got to be going for broke right now in the last year or two with Stafford. I think what it says to me the most is they don't have concern with Puka Nacua coming back and playing once he gets out of rehab. Mm-hmm. To me, that's the number one thing I see. If they made this move, then they can't have concern about Puka, right? Which is great. I think we all want him on the field, but, if there is some backdoor stuff going that you've got to think about from a fantasy side, he's going top 5 in every draft. And should he be if he's going to be limited this year? Because you never know. And listen, what happens off the field sometimes is a lot more important than football. So, to me, them taking this says, more importantly, what happens to Puka in the first round. So I think it's good for him. I think for long-term dynasty, but I don't see Simpson taking the field. I hope Stafford can stay healthy and, for at least a year or two. So I think in dynasty, I'd still be putting him behind a few others. He doesn't run, but he's got, a plethora around him. And, for instance, I'm not sure Ty Simpson will ever throw to Devontae Adams. Right. On the field, for instance, right? So, I think they could have used another weapon on the field to help them win a Super Bowl this year, but those guys are in that position, and I'm not.
There remains to be seen. I mean, there are other guys not nearly as dynamic as, say Makai Lemon or Kenyon Sadiq, who they had the opportunity to draft. But, Keenan Allen, Stephon Diggs, Juwan Jennings, whatever. Ferrell, and I'm listen. The Rams can do whatever they want, but clearly they made the decision that the best time to draft a quarterback is when you don't need one. and they drafted Ty Simpson tonight based on that premise. Ferrell, your thoughts on Ty Simpson? This one really caught me in my tracks tonight.
Yeah, I think you did. I think you did, everybody. The Rams have a Jekyll and Hyde approach to the draft, I think, and I want to criticize them from time to time, just in appearances alone. One year they drafted or they one year during the draft they rented a house with a swimming pool and had a party during the draft. Everybody else is showing up in a suit and tie and making a presentation, except those guys who showed up kind of like we are tonight. There was even a scout wearing his hat backwards, Jason. It was just and they go, but then you can't criticize a group that drafted Puka Nacua in the 5th round. You can't do, and they've got a 2nd, a 3rd, and they don't have a 4th or 5th. They got a 6th. They got 3 7s. Wait and see who else they draft. They'll probably draft somebody else that'll become a household name. He is a 38-year-old quarterback. You think about a 38-year-old quarterback that has had some back issues during his time completing the season. So you got to have this rookie quarterback ready to step in, given that opportunity. I'd have to look at their depth chart to see who else they have out there. But, it seems like at the end of the day, they're always right there. And so I certainly am not going to criticize their pick. They might know something that no one else does, and that's why they get paid the big bucks. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, F them picks, as Les Snead, the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they were really interested in picks.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Farrell, we'll wrap things up tonight. Jason, I want to get your thoughts on this after Farrell talks about it. Worst kept secret in the world, Fernando Mendoza, the new quarterback for the Raiders. Number 1 overall pick tonight, Ferrell, and there was reports. I can't remember who put this out. It might have been Ian Rappaport or Mike Garafolo. I'm not sure that the Raiders want Cousins in a perfect world to be the starting quarterback all season, where Mendoza takes a true redshirt year. I'm wondering how you weigh that. Knowing that the Raiders invested the 101 in a quarterback and have players like Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, Jack Bash, Jalen Naylor now as well. And we'll see what they do on day 2 and day 3. But Farrell, Mendoza as the number 1 pick in the draft, we like it. But how much should we like it for 2026 based on what we think his playing time might be?
Let's play the long game out there and wait and see what the Raiders are doing. I don't ever know what to think of Kirk Cousins being the quarterback. I really don't. I don't know how you have a plethora of options of what's going to happen with him at quarterback, and it's a week to week situation. But I think you have the same thing with a rookie quarterback. So as you consider drafting Bowers, who remains one of the top tight ends, you got to figure that out. Raiders are a very interesting team. As we talk about the Jets having a hard time, we could equally talk about the Raiders. They earned that 1st round draft spot. They didn't. Yeah. They didn't trade into it. And we have a situation though where the Raiders have 2 players that go in Balky in FFPC drafts, the top 15.
For sure, maybe even
2 players in the top 15. So it makes our trip to Camp Landing, our trip to Northern Kentucky, our trip to Caesars here in Louisville, and most importantly, our trip to the FFPC so much entertaining, so wonderful to go out and to get a mix of these players on the various teams that you play.
Bowers at the 111. Genty at the 201 over the last week and a half in the Big Gorilla. To ask you and throw this to you, Jason, knowing that this Rappaport report is out there that the Raiders want, I'm putting that in quotes for the people who are not watching this and just viewing it and just listening to it, beg your pardon. Best laid plans, right? So right. The Raiders may want to have Mendoza sit all year. I don't know if that comes to fruition. And I don't know, and you weigh in on this. Tell me what you think about Mendoza and this report that the Raiders, in a perfect world, don't want him to play in 2026 and have him take over this offense in 2027 from Kirk Cousins.
Well, I got to be honest with you. So I'm out on Bowers in the 1st round, but I'm in on Genty, and it has more to do with their strengthening their offensive line and free agency and, what they're doing. I think, Genty will probably earn or he gets drafted this year. And unlike being overdrafted last year, just because of the offensive line, I mean, he's a good kid, a hard runner. He can catch, he can run, he can do it all. I believe in him for sure. And Bowers has to rely more on whoever's playing quarterback for the Raiders. And I mean, I don't buy it. I think Cousins is a great mentor, even though he says, I'm not signed to be a mentor, but him and Mendoza together, they're like the same guy, just good people, good family men, Christians. I think they're going to fit really well together. In Sin City's a little crazy, but when the Raiders are 3-7, I don't think they're going to be starting Kirk Cousins anymore because there's really no reason to.
Right. That's a great point. And while the Raiders are saying this now publicly, as we know, as established fantasy players, this does not often play out the way in real life that the actual team wants.
Exactly right.
Jason, the last thing I want to bring up tonight here before we let you go, obviously we're very excited. Mid-August at Camp Landing in Ashland, Kentucky. It's going to be a lot of fun. That is going to be the weekend of August 15th, August 16th. For anybody who wants to check it out before then, or just wants to get a feel for Camp Landing, tell us a little bit about everything that you guys offer there for anybody who wants to spend a weekend or maybe a day or just a few hours over at Camp Landing.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, my wife and I ended up buying a dead mall, 600,000 square foot building right in the middle of COVID 5 years ago, and turned it into an entertainment complex. It's got a 10-screen movie theater. It's got 170,000 square foot indoor theme park for kids with roller coasters and laser tag and go-karts. And it's got a 75,000 square foot casino, including a BetMGM inside of it as well. Tap That Sports that we have there. It's a lot of bars and restaurants, just a good time that you can do something different, every hour that you're there. We got hotels right around there. Ferrell and I have hooked up some great hotel room rates. Come and spend the weekend with us. You won't get bored. I can promise you that. And I'll probably even hire a live band or two to come in for some post-draft parties. And like I said, we got a 48 beer tap wall right there. Pour your own beer where you got your RFID card and you just kind of pay for what you pour and taste all 48. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. So, we're honored to have the league come to us for the first year and draft and really kick off the season right in mid-August.
Camplanding.com, Facebook.com/Camp Landing. Find them at 699 US 60 in Ashland, Kentucky. Give them a call, 606-922-CAMP. That is 606-922-CAMP. Camplanding.com. Email them at info@camplanding.com. This is so much fun, Jason, to pick your brain, the 13-time champion of the FFPC, not only in Dynasty, but redraft as well. I want to wish you nothing but the best of luck in all your leagues coming up this season. I want to tell you how excited I am, if I can make it happen, to see you in person in mid-August in Ashland. That's going to be a lot of fun. And by and large, dude, good luck in the rookie drafts. Not that you need it, but enjoy the rest of the draft this weekend. We had so much fun breaking down one round of it, Jason. So much fun that we know we're going to have with 6 more rounds on deck here.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm a Dolphin fan, so, we traded down and then traded up and got a lot more picks. So, I hope we get our own wide receiver too.
I bet there's more than one.
We need it.
Yeah.
We need it.
There's a couple of good guys out there, and one of the good guys we had on the broadcast tonight for fantasy football purposes, Jason Camp. Jason, be good. We will talk with you again very, very soon.
Appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. That is Jason Camp. Hopping aboard tonight, camplanding.com. Check it out, where we'll be drafting in August at the KFFSC. Ferrell, 3 weekends now. KFFSC just absolutely crushing it.
We have always been a live event. That's largely we have main event options, both online, both live online and slow drafts. But we've always regularly been a live event. That's we look to continue that. We found out that, especially with the addition of Northern Kentucky, that people don't want to be necessarily limited to one weekend.
Right.
And people also as you get closer to Labor Day, drafters do have a experience of drafting in their home leagues with longtime friends and traditional things that and so we don't we look at the August 15th 16th date as a gift. We think everyone's ready to go, and once you come and experience what Jason has for all the public and what he particularly has in mind with his gracious kindness of putting us in Camp Landing. And I will tell you, a Camp Landing with no event fee, no live event fee for our activities. And it just shows his dedication to fantasy football and the kind of guy he is. And he's a great contributor to this, and we want to make it work for him and for the people of Eastern Kentucky. So it's a big weekend for us.
Big weekend, and big weekend for you, big weekend for anybody who is thinking about drafting live. That is the place to go. Bring the family, bring the wife, bring the kids. You're going to have a great time over at Camp Landing. It's going to be great. Speaking of great times, I just completed a draft master over at KFFSC. And then, like, seemingly right, like clockwork, right after that ended, the Sweet 16 championship, the $100 version, the Vontae Mack division filled up, and I'm drafting in that right now. So of course I'm like, well, I got to sign up for another draft. So I'm in the Sweet 16. Excuse me, the Jack Tatum. Or no, it was the
you're in the Tatum, buddy.
Tatum, yeah. And now I'm also in the Vontae Mack division. No matter what,
our divisions are named after 7 historically successful Raider players and 1 fictional player from the movie we spoke earlier of tonight.
From the Cleveland Browns, yeah, exactly. R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman. So I'm in that one. Steve G. Steve Urgalos is in that one. And by the way, Stu Keen, who you'd mentioned earlier in the podcast, as well as Steve G and myself, we're all in the mini camp main event KFFSC slow draft as well. So if you're looking for some KFFSC action and competing against us, we'd love to have you. KFFSC.com. KFFSC.com is where to go. Ferrell, this is so much fun. I apologize for keeping you up late tonight. I know that's sort of like what you do anyway, but it was great hanging out with you, talking about this first round. We might have to make this a future thing to do, recording a podcast right after the first round. This is a lot of fun. I wish you nothing but good luck in all of your drafts. Enjoy the rest of the draft this weekend. I know you will be paying it very, very close attention to it. And we will talk with you again next Friday night, an hour early, when we are covering the Genesis and Revelations drafts. Be good and happy draft weekend to you, sir.
Thank you, Bob.
That is Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. Ladies and gentlemen, popping aboard tonight here, and that's going to wrap up our show tonight. I want to thank Ferrell Elliott. I want to thank Jason Camp, camplanding.com for more information on that, as well as the KFFSC. That's going to be there in week 1, the opening weekend of the KFFSC. That's going to be a lot of fun at Camp Landing in Ashland, Kentucky for the live event this year. Thanks to the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you, as I mentioned with Ferrell. 9 p.m. Eastern time next Friday night. We'll have live coverage of both the Genesis and Revelations drafts. We'll probably get on some of the drafters in those formats to come on and make a few picks on air. And by the way, the next couple of weeks going forward, we'll probably get hopefully we'll get the former champions of Genesis and Revelations on to talk about their performances in 2025 as well. In case you missed it, Matt Price from Dynasty League Football was my guest on FFPC Insider Access on a special Monday episode. This coming Thursday, we're back on the normal schedule. So Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, the Dynasty expert from Player Profiler Johnny Tuma is going to be breaking down the entire 7 rounds of the 2026 NFL draft and what it means for fantasy purposes as we head into FFPC rookie draft weekend. Don't forget Dynasty Empire Orphans available for as little as $1, some less than $1 right now. So if the NFL draft is stirring you, you can get some pretty good deals on Dynasty Orphans now at myffpc.com. The Best Ball Tournament and the Superflex Best Ball Tournament now live, since the Never Too Early tournaments are closed as they sold out prior to the NFL draft. $400,000 grand prize in the best ball tournament. That is up $100K from last year for the grand prize. It's still $125 to enter, $35 to enter the Superflex version. We entered an extra $50,000 into the prize pool this year as well. So you can win $100,000 grand prize this year. The Big Gorilla and the Baby Gorilla available, $1 million and $100,000 grand prize respectively, $350 and $125 to enter. Don't forget with the Big Gorilla, 7 bananas and early Rampage promotions going on right now at myffpc.com. Where do you sign up? myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share with your friends, share with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be next Thursday. Player profilers Johnny Tuma joining me for 2 full hours of an NFL draft breakdown at 7 p.m. Thursday on FFPC Insider Access. For Jason Camp, for Ferrell Elliott, I have been Eric Balkman, and this has been the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Your NFL draft weekend officially continues and, in some respects, starts right now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Yourself.